zu sagen, herzlich willkommen. Nice to have you. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Laura.
Thanks
Firstly,
Laura.
we'd also like to say thanks to our long-standing partner, Comedia, for the invitation to present on this really integral corporate learning topic, meet the needs of the modern learner, macro versus micro learning. On our short agenda this morning, after a short company presentation about Heel, we'll meet the modern learner, talk a little bit about macro versus micro learning, pointing out some of the key differences. We'll also touch on the development of a new prototype using Knowledgeworker Create and journey through some digital learning tools and technology that's available today. Below you'll see our disclaimer, and of course this presentation will be made available to all meetup participants. Healthcare designed by nature. So a little bit about Heel GmbH. Heel is a pharmaceutical company that develops, manufactures and distributes natural medicines. With 1,300 employees worldwide, Heel achieves an annual turnover of over 200 million euro. Heel medicines are available through our subsidiaries and distribution partners in 50 countries around the world. Heel has a broad research program in the area of natural medicine using advanced technologies. Next, I'll hand over to Jana, who'll introduce us to the modern learner.
So let's meet the modern learner. Who actually is the modern learner? Well, several years ago, Josh Burson introduced the Burson by Deloitte infographic, Meet the Modern Learner, creating a snapshot of the modern worker profile. Moreover, GP Strategies highlighted the needs and expectations of the modern learner, which really illustrates the battle learning and development must engage in to compete for a worker's time and attention to learning. We live in a world where consumers are used to streaming videos via Netflix, watching videos to learn new skills via YouTube, on demand, just in time. We all live very busy lives. Trying to fit everything into our daily lives can be stressful. And finding time for learning isn't always our main priority. The modern learner often feels overwhelmed and distracted. Therefore, learning needs to be extremely relevant today, and corporate learning cultures and strategies need to make sure that learning is available in smaller chunks. The modern learner is also keen to learn. The modern learner prefers learning to be through on-the-job experience. Scenario-based learning or situational simulations can be delivered using digital learning innovations, which are mobile, and micro-learning is an integral part of course design in this respect. Learners also expect to be able to learn on the go. For example, sitting in the train, or imagine a sales rep waiting at reception to meet the new potential client. Waiting for that first chance to deliver an impressive sales pitch. Waiting provides learners with the opportunity to revisit key messages and how to deliver them successfully. It means the modern learner seeks timely and personalized content. Mobile digital learning provides us with the opportunity to learn when we have the time, when we have the mental capacity, and when we have the ability to take in new knowledge. It gives us the chance to learn wherever and whenever we want. And most importantly, mobile digital learning provides us, the modern learners, with the ability to have new knowledge available at our fingertips. Micro-learning is also an integral part of modern learning today. So shifting corporate learning cultures from 4 hours a year to 4 minutes a day or a week, for example, is possible. It is expected and it is necessary in today's modern world. Typically, the modern learner only has 20 minutes a week or approximately 1% to focus on professional development. In our department, Medical Communication here at Heel, we develop medical education content that is targeted at our modern learners. So Salesforce, healthcare professionals, international speakers, just to name a few. At Heel, we recognize rapid development in digital learning and learning technologies. With that, we embarked on a strategy to optimize learning as part of digital transformation. It was clear that we needed to optimize our digital learning offer, both locally and globally. So implementing microlearning into our portfolio was paramount. But first, we needed to make sense of these two learning concepts and find a way for them to work together as part of learner progress, relevant to our target audience. Next, Leon will take you on a journey into two important learning categories, macro-learning and micro-learning.
Thanks, Jana. Let's highlight some of the differences and considerations when adopting these learning concepts. We start with macro-learning. It truly allows someone to learn something completely new, which really requires a greater amount of knowledge and a lot of time to learn new concepts, principles, to qualify, to practice, and to receive coaching and support. Examples of macro-learning are anything from sales training to various certification programs. Here, you really need to commit an ample amount of time to acquire the much-needed foundation knowledge. Learning professionals today tend to enhance macro-learning by incorporating blended, flipped, or chunked elements into an overall curriculum. And these often have micro elements, anything like a micro video, such as a TED Talk, for example. In the last years, we had focused almost all of our content development using macro learning principles. But in recent years, we embraced the power of micro learning. And I really say that with emphasis. The power of micro learning is phenomenal. And since we've incorporated both learning concepts into our medical education portfolio, with numerous further developments in digital learning underway. In contrast, we look at micro-learning. And micro-learning is often used when faced with a problem. You need to learn something now, and you need that information fast. Learning here requires only minutes, and that's a great contrast to macro-learning. Micro-learning is minutes, macro-learning is hours, weeks, sometimes months. So micro-content is highly specific content. It provides a shorter learner engagement, anything from 4 to 12 minutes, in order to capitalize on the attention span of a learner. And it's a good learning tool to increase retention. Content is divided into small information nuggets when we build and develop micro-learning. And it's often used to update knowledge and skills. And it can also be used for performance support. When we look at the two side by side, macro and micro, one of the key differences is the commitment to time required, as I mentioned, where macro learning really requires hours, days, weeks, or longer to adequately learn, understand the new concepts or topics, and to practice, whereas micro learning only takes minutes. I really emphasize these 2 points because it's the clearest way to separate macro and micro. Of course, for our sales staff, that could be learning or revisiting new terminology for micro learning, or how to respond to a particularly challenging question. How do you know whether or not your content fits a micro-learning model? And that's a really difficult question when you start looking or venturing into this area. Brasino et al. Pointed out several factors that drive micro-learning content and developed a rubric. It can help. Basically, the factors for consideration of a micro-learning fit included things like time required to learn. It has to be short. that learners are able to quickly view the content, absorb it, learn what they need, that the content is based on simply achieving one singular learning outcome. Another key, integral, important point about microlearning. It's just-in-time content. It's needed right now. And of course, content is easy to reach, update, and revise, meaning it's mobile content. It's also placed so the learner can access the content when required, again and again if needed. It's no point burying microlearning content deep within an LMS, and numerous clicks and layers need to be ventured through in order to access that content. That's difficult then in terms of access. Although Brasino et al. State that microlearning must tick all of these boxes, so every single one of these 6 factors, they also say that there has to be some flexibility, and we certainly have adopted that approach. We've also adopted our own standards and best practices for microlearning. Whatever you decide, remember that we do live in a world where learners expect a Netflix-style experience. So learners don't want to scroll through irrelevant amounts of information. And as I said, click 10 times or more to access just a short burst of information. They need it right now. So 2 clicks is generally a good principle to getting to that information. Ebbinghaus created the forgetting curve. Many of you might be aware of this. Back in 1885, this research, we often see the learning curve come back again and again. And this model still holds true today. Karpicke and a group of studies indicated that a retrieval event may actually represent a more powerful learning activity than an encoding event itself. So with this in mind, microlearning should really be designed to be easily retrievable so that it can actually be practiced. Microlearning content should be presented in short bursts, spaced over time, in a variety of formats, such as videos, simulations, scenarios, infographics, and the list goes on. There are various formats. For example, ebooks can be used to present policies, infographics for do's and don'ts, and scenario-based assessments to test decision-making skills. Other examples of micro assets that can help with retention include flashcards and challenges, such as peer-to-peer quiz platforms. Such content can be used for both knowledge and, of course, skill reinforcement. So microlearning is truly an important concept in corporate learning today. And to summarize about microlearning, learners can be engaged very effectively as nowadays they have very short attention spans. We're forever distracted by things. People find it easy to assimilate information, especially when it's divided into smaller chunks. So let's say nuggets, so smaller nuggets of information. Personalized learning, learning that's relevant and can be provided just in time, that's crucial. And microlearning is also highly flexible. Can be reused and repurposed relatively easily. And of course, it's also quicker to develop and at a much lower cost. Comedia being a very long-standing partner and an expert for us in e-learning, we work together on the adoption of microlearning to enhance our medical education offer. And they were a crucial part of the new digital learning pathway that we established. Together, we developed a microlearning prototype inside Knowledgeworker Create. Changes to the programming were essential in order to establish a suitable design, and the programmers at Comedia really made this possible for us. To give you a glimpse at the obvious visual differences, take a look at the left-hand side here. The left-hand side is an example of one of our macro learning courses. You see that the information load is extremely high. There's a lot of content for our learners to digest. And on the right-hand side, this is the new micro-learning prototype. And the information load is much lighter, therefore it's easier to digest and retain. That's the whole concept behind micro-learning. And if we just look at the 2 different learning modalities, the key differences are the amount of information, the complexity, and the duration to complete. The left-hand side course takes hours to complete. Microlearning, in contrast, on the right-hand side, takes about 12 minutes to complete. But how does a rich mix of macro and microlearning come together at work? Berson and his group developed a concept called learning in the flow of work. If we think about corporate learning, it's evolved dramatically over the years, with a world of new and innovative digital learning tools and a number of smart models, such as this one, on offer to integrate learning. This particular model, learning in the flow of work, demonstrates how early in a role, so in a new job, we need macro learning to get started, to really understand our jobs, the domain, the system, the people that we're working with. And as we progress up the learning curve, we need to learn new skills and build on that to proceed until we become an expert. Then some of us turn into coaches and we teach others, moving in a more horizontal direction until we reach the next level of proficiency. We may go into another role, get a promotion. Here, we may need to embark on another macro learning journey and head back up the learning curve again. Or if we fail, we may actually get bored, leave the job. It's an important concept because you can see how macro and micro can fit together to really kind of follow us through our careers and really support learners along the way. Another key point to make is that micro learning is also a valuable tool for experts. It can be used to spark interest. Let's say a teaser. You can use it to give them an opportunity to learn a little bit about a new product, for example, or a new concept, or in our area, a new therapeutic approach. Where a more time-consuming course, such as a macro course, can be requested afterwards. Once they think, okay, I want to learn a little bit more about this. And that's how micro-learning can also be used for experts as well. In today's digital learning world, we must think about these journeys in every role and categorize content so that it can be used for all of these purposes. For the final part of our presentation, Jana will walk through a number of the digital tools and technology. Jana.
So, how do you now go about selecting the digital tools and that optimize learning and fit to your company needs? Well, with the plethora of new digital learning tools and platforms that are available, it is important not to lose sight of the following factors: need, suitability, and sustainability, as well as feasibility and scalability. Establishing a set of best practices is really essential. So after first reviewing our tech stack, surveying our learners for needs and expectations, we were able to identify gaps and close them. So let's take a quick look at our roadmap for digital learning optimization in recent years. Digital learning today offers various platforms, various tools and concepts. Microlearning is one of them, and it can be developed using various formats such as short videos, infographics, simulations, gamifications like a quiz, and so on. And also our partner Camedia offers a lot of insights, concepts, and tools to implement microlearning. Let's take a look at what we at Heel use from the Knowledgeworker suite. Knowledgeworker Create is used for our macro learning courses because it offers unique functionality such as quick and easy access to stored references and also glossary terms. It also allows us to add links to references, which is essential in our field of medical education. We've been using Knowledgeworker Create for over a decade now. In early 2019, we moved from the classic editor to the responsive editor, as Flash elements were no longer supported by browsers. Shifting to a mobile design was important for us, as we wanted to ensure that our courses catered to the needs and expectations of the modern learner. Many of our macro learning courses are built using videos, and videos are also used for micro learning as well. Today, interactive video technology allows us to add quiz questions that pop up automatically during viewing. Using this concept, learners can first acquire new knowledge and then check their knowledge within a video environment. Knowledgeworker Create offers this digital technological enhancement. Knowledgeworker Create is also used for our micro-learning courses. As previously mentioned, we've developed a micro-learning prototype to support the design requirements of such courses. We also used it to build the coaching arm of our micro-learning pathway. Here, we incorporate Knowledgeworker Coach as well. So we at Heel and our research on microlearning created two pathways, courses on the one side and on the other side coaching. Microlearning courses are used to reinforce product information, release news or latest evidence in a short burst. And microlearning coach builds on another important area, that is immersive situation or scenario-based simulations. Knowledgeworker Coach is used to provide a platform for our scenario-based training or situational simulations. So, for example, our sales representative can practice the delivery of key messages for our products. This helps to optimize responses and improve their confidence answering difficult questions posed by clients. And currently, we are developing a pilot project using Knowledgeworker cards to build and improve vocabulary. This microlearning design offers a great way to reinforce words and concepts. It strongly supports knowledge retention and allows learners to easily revisit vocabulary via the app. If you recall from the introduction, the modern learner typically has only 20 minutes to dedicate to professional development. So a successful modern learner portfolio needs to be rich. It needs to be interactive, so alive. It needs to be mobile and offer foundation and the opportunity for revision to support retention.
All in all, it's important to offer learners an intelligent mix of macro and micro learning, delivered in a digital, innovative, mobile environment that supports the needs and expectations of the modern learner. Thank you for your attention. We look forward to meeting you in the Q&A session.
Thank you.
Vielen Dank, Jana und Leon, für diese großartigen Insights. Es war super spannend. Very interesting, Leon. Thank you millions. It was nice to see how you are using our tools and how you developed your process and concept. And maybe some of the users have questions, and I'd like to ask them again to ask via the chat so we can read them. Falls Sie Fragen haben, jetzt nochmal für unsere deutschsprachigen Gäste, können Sie gerne die Fragen in den Chat stellen. Vielleicht möchten Sie auch noch einige weitere Insights zur Vorgehensweise von Heel auf Fragen nur zu. Genau. Well, while there are no questions yet, I'd like to ask you some questions which are mostly interesting for me, because I know you are using Knowledgeworker Create I think about 10 years or something like that. So from the very beginning on, and you made all the development with us together. And now I think you have probably a favorite feature which you're using the most. So which is this feature? What is this feature? Do you have favorites?
I think there are a few. I can't reduce it down to one. I love the interactive elements. I love the developments that come through. But certainly in our work, the glossary, the database that we have there that we can very quickly add, new terminology to, and of course the collection of our references. So when we actually do have content that we're writing, we can simply grab those references, save them, add to that database. So those assets and the interactive ability to add them into the editor itself are really crucial in our content development.
Okay, thanks. Great to know. To be honest, I knew this before because I'm in contact with Leon, and we had very special talks about features as well. So nice that you shared this with our other customers in our community. So there are first questions. Rüdiger Bereits asked, wie stellen Sie die Lernangebote zur Verfügung und welche Plattform nutzen Sie? Und nutzen Sie XAPI? Ich weiß nicht, Jana oder Leon, wer möchte antworten?
Ja, would you like
to? Ich kann gerne mal zum ersten Teil der Frage schon mal was sagen. Und zwar nutzen wir ein Learning Management System, um unsere Kurse zur Verfügung zu stellen, exportieren also unsere Kurse und haben dann da eine eigene Lernumgebung für unsere Lerner auf der ganzen Welt. Und vielleicht, Leon, maybe you want to add some more input on XAPI.
We still use SCORM today at the moment. We are looking into XAPI, but because legally we don't need a lot of the tracking features that is offered there, we don't expect to adopt that anytime soon. SCORM really ticks all of our boxes for us and really helps for all the courses to be mobile.
Okay, I hope this answered the question. Ich hoffe, das hat Ihre Frage beantwortet, Herr Reitz. Ansonsten besteht auch die Möglichkeit, ja, da kommt ein Thanks, alles klar. Die nächste Frage ist auf Englisch. Please summarize once which tools of Comedia exactly are in use at Heel. Thanks.
Yes,
would you like that?
Of course. So, as we already mentioned, we use the Knowledgeworker Create to create our courses, both micro-learning and macro-learning. And we now incorporated as well Knowledgeworker Coach to create the scenario-based courses. And now we're also piloting Knowledgeworker cards because it really offers a great potential to have retention or to learn, for example, new vocabularies or new messages on the products.
Okay, the next question is English again. Micro-learning modules. How is the horizontal navigation based on? Learning objective, SCO, section. Okay, this is quite a deep question. I don't know if we can answer it. And if everybody understands, to maybe say some words in the beginning. Learning objective, SCO, and sections are elements which you can use to structure learning contents in Knowledgeworker Create. So I'd like to ask you, Jana or Leon, who wants to answer?
I think I can start. So in general, it's different between all of our courses. For example, we have courses that are quite huge where we say we have one course with different modules, but actually when we create this one course on one product, for example, then it consists out of several courses within Knowledgeworker Create. So each course in Knowledgeworker Create reflects one module in our huge course that we upload into our learning management system. And then each of these modules is, of course, divided into these different sections based on the learning objectives. And then each learning objective is divided into SCOs and different sections. And I think it's always very valuable to work there or to partner there with Comedia and to work on the structure there and to get your input there, because I think that's really very helpful to structure a course.
Okay, I think the question was more about micro-learning modules. So thanks again for a declaration of the macro-learning. But the question was how the horizontal navigation is based on. If you can't answer, I'd suggest that we could answer this later on to Mr. Rapp. Maybe you can ask this again in one of the sessions later in the Knowledgeworker Create, or maybe you can answer.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something we can touch on later again. And I think to say for our first micro-learning pilot project that we have, we can say, of course, it has just smaller chunks and we focus on one learning objective on each chunk. where the learner, for example, then has 8 minutes to go through this learning objective.
Yeah.
And
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I can add on, if you like, Matthias Rapp, if you'd like to connect one-on-one, I'd be happy to just show you the structure that we have for micro-learning. Of course, with micro-learning, it's important to build in a modular way so that each of those modules are standalone so that you can use them again and again how you need to. And that's something that's really integral in the design that Comedia really helped to establish for micro-learning.
Okay, I think this question is answered okay. Maybe we can go ahead with the next question. Do you have specified learning journey? Yeah.
Sorry, Laura, I can see that Denise has actually answered that question in the chat.
Yeah, okay, then have a look at the chat, Mr. Rapp, please. Okay, do you have specified learning journey defined? Which a potential trainee has to go through? I'm thinking of different learning paths. Or do you have levels of expertise?
That's a great question and a really important one. Given that we're headquarters medical communication, looking after medical education on a global level, we have numerous subsidiaries, and each of the subsidiaries have their own learning strategy. So their journeys are different in the different subsidiaries, but at the moment we're really looking at the development or redevelopment of our learner personas in the many different countries so that we can develop a global learning strategy building in both macro and micro learning with learning in the flow of work in mind. So that's underway at the moment, and we'll expect to have a lot more there in the next 6 to 12 months. But a really crucial and integral part of learning today to really make sure that learning is personalized, that journeys do make sense to the learning personas that are out there in the various groups. So for us, in the various countries.
Okay, thanks. The next two questions are nearly in the same direction. So maybe we can just ask, how do you decide whether micro or macro learning is needed for your learning path?
Yeah, and that was a really difficult question for us in the start. It really depends on the complexity of the content. In our field, using medical terminology, medical content, rather complex most of the time. So we really have to look at the content and the objectives that are there. And if it is that one learning concept has numerous learning objectives, it tends to be macro, no doubt about it. But if we can actually take one of those more complex ideas and find one learning objective that can be easily turned over into practice, then we can still create micro learning elements there. So it's not an easy question to answer. It wasn't for us, but we did manage to find the mix, how we can identify what we'll build macro and finding a balance for macro foundational courses, building in more complex learning ideas using macro, and then complementing with micro learning to actually have that chance to, one, teach new ideas, new concepts that can be broken down into one learning objective and easily turned over, and also be there for a repetitive practice for our learners to kind of refresh their knowledge. So even though there are macro courses on our products, we will still build in micro courses as well, so that there's that reinforcement opportunity there.
Okay, so thanks for explaining. There's one more question about the learning paths. How did you implement them? Are you using curricula, or do you use the new target group function, or in a completely different way?
I think I need more context for the question.
It's the question from Jessica Burkhardt, if you want to read it again. So it was asked whether you're using learning paths, and you said already that you're learning paths. And now is the question, how are you implementing them? So there are various ways in Knowledgeworker Create.
Sure. Our learning paths we have built into our LMS. So if we build the modular content in the CMS that we have through Comedia, of course, then we build the learning paths through our LMS.
Yeah. All right. Okay. There's one more question, and I think this should be the last one as well. It's the question from Eva Maria Kollasch. It's German again. Wie begegnen Sie verschiedenen Lerntypen mit den unterschiedlichen Formaten? Gibt es unterschiedliche Aufarbeitungen von Inhalten für unterschiedliche Lerntypen?
Yes, Jana, would you like to answer? But yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah, I think you can expand on your answer already, Leo. You started already.
Of course, we do develop learning content for the different target audiences. I'm not sure if the answer is required in German.
Ich übersetze kurz. Also, Sie verwenden verschiedene Lerntyp-Formaten. Also, Sie passen das an. Genau. Okay, I'd like to say thank you. I think we need to come to an end because the next presentation is about to start in some minutes. So, Leon, thanks a million for having you. I need to look there, I think. And Jana as well. Vielen Dank, dass ihr euch Zeit genommen habt, uns so wertvolle Einblicke zu liefern.